Hello, in this tutorial I'm going to introduce CSS or Cascading Style Sheets. What is CSS? CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. Styles define how to display HTML elements. Styles were added to HTML 4.0 to solve a problem with HTML. External style sheets allow a web developer to make changes to several web pages. External style sheets are stored in CSS files, which are basically text files. Styles solved a big problem. HTML was never intended to contain tags for formatting a document. HTML was intended to define the content of a document, like H1. This is the header tag, or P, which is the paragraph tag. When tags like font and color attributes were added to HTML 3.2, it started a nightmare for web developers. Development of large websites where fonts and color information were added to every single page became a long and expensive process. To solve this problem, the World Wide Web Consortium, W3C, created CSS. In HTML 4.0, all formatting could be removed from the HTML document and stored in a separate CSS file. All browsers support CSS today. CSS saves a lot of work. CSS defines how HTML elements are to be displayed. Styles are normally saved in an external .css files. External style sheets enable you, the designer, to change the appearance and layout of all the pages in a website just by editing one single file. Okay, we'll look at some examples here. Here I have a website. I have my home page, which of course is linked to my other pages, and then I have a third level page. In other words, to get to the third level page, which is associated with page 3, you have to go through page 3. Now imagine on this website that on every single page, and we have 6 web pages, that I am using a background color of blue and the font Arial. And let's say that the group decided that we want to change that background color from blue to green, and we wanted to change our font from Arial to Times New Roman. I would need to go to all 6 pages and make that change on every single page. By using CSS or an external style sheet, I can make the change to this one document, style1.css, and that change will have a cascade effect. Okay, so what I need to do is link all of my web pages to the style1 CSS. So in every single web page, in the head section, I need to add this line of code, and it's best for students to just memorize this line of code. Link is my element, and then my attribute is a hyperlink reference equals styles1.css, the name of my file, the relative type, which is a style sheet, and then the type, which is text or CSS. It is important that this is placed in the head section, otherwise it will not work. Here's an example of a small style sheet. Students will often say that it is similar to HTML. The coding, the syntax is similar to HTML, but it is different. And your syntax, your code, must be correct or accurate. Otherwise, your styles will not be rendered in your web page. Okay, so let's look at the syntax here. Here I have my body, which is a regular HTML tag. And then I have 2 declarations, or 2 rules. My first rule, the font family for the body section, which of course is the web page, is going to use, the font family includes Arial, Helvetica, and then sans serif. What the browser will do, the browser will render my web page and it will use Arial as the font. If Arial is unavailable, then it will use Helvetica. if Helvetica is unavailable, then it will use a sans serif font. And the background color for my body is going to be this hexadecimal value here, FFFF00, which I believe is yellow. And another way to look at this, those of you that are programming students, is that my body is my element, and then a declaration is a combination of an attribute and a value. Font family is my attribute. Arial Helvetica Sans Serif is my value. Notice the syntax here. I state my selector or my element, and then I have an open curly bracket, and then going down one line I have my attribute, and then I have the colon, and then I have my value, and then a semicolon. And there should be a space between the colon and the value. And I do realize on my presentation I do have an error. I should have a space there. It will work, however, this is bad form. And then, of course, again, close the declaration with the semicolon, and then the closing curly bracket. And as I said before, it is very important that you use correct and proper syntax, otherwise your style will not work. Okay. Here's just, I've color-coded this so it might be easier for you to identify. The body is an element, font family is an attribute, and Arial Helvetica Sans Serif is a value. And it is a multi-value, which is separated by commas. Okay. So again, we're going to use that style sheet, and it's going to be linked to all of my HTML pages. Okay, so if I were to decide that my style sheet, my background is blue, that is declared in my style sheet, then that will have a cascade effect and all of my pages will be blue. That's where the name comes from, Cascading Style Sheets. These styles will cascade to all my other pages if they are properly linked. If I decide to change my background color to yellow, then simultaneously all the other pages will have a yellow background. So as you can see, rather than changing the color attribute for body in 6 web pages, I only need to change it in one location in my style sheet. Just as if I were to declare in my style sheet that the font is Arial, the font family, then as a cascade effect, the font for all 6 web pages will become Arial. Now, CSS also allows us to create custom tags. Now, in my previous example, when I used body, I did not have a period before my element or my selector. This period lets the browser know that this is a custom style. And so for header 1, I'm applying font size is large, and larger than the default font size for the browser. The font weight is bold, and the color has this hexadecimal value. So here in my web page, I have applied this special class, header 1, to this paragraph. So everything between this opening and closing paragraph tag will be styled using the class header 1. Notice that we don't use the period at this point in the HTML. Sorry about that. And so this web page using CSS will be styled. Notice the font size is large, the font weight is bold, and the color is this variation of blue. So this portion of the slide is in my style sheet, and this is how the style is applied in the HTML. Notice again that we are applying this class using this syntax, paragraph, and then I have a space, class equals header 1. So in summary, we use CSS to style or format content in a web page. The best use of CSS is an external file rather than internal or inline. And internal and inline are explained on the W3 Schools website, but I prefer to teach students from the very beginning to use external. This is a much smarter and more efficient way to use CSS. And finally, CSS code is different from HTML.